In this video, I'm going to give you some tips that can help you save time and money, especially when traveling abroad. Welcome, my beautiful people. Fernando David here. If you're planning to take a trip, an extended trip abroad, this video is for you because I'm going to give you some practical tips and some advice as to how to take advantage of what's available to you when you go abroad. So for example, let's start with packing. I highly recommend when you pack the bare minimum. So for example, you don't need to pack shampoos, you don't need to pack soaps, because today most of the places that you're going to be booking, especially if you book on Airbnb, and I highly recommend you find a short-term rental or a hostel or something like that, because they're going to be cheaper than staying in the major hotels, but they're going to provide you with soap, they're going to provide you with shampoo. It may not be your brand, but at least it's something that you can use and you don't have to pack that stuff and you don't have to worry about that stuff when you're going through TSA. For example, if you're flying into Paris, they're going to make you put everything in a little bag, and if you have a lot of toiletries, you're gonna have to use multiple bags. It's just gonna delay you, and it's gonna take up some of your valuable time when you're going through security. So don't pack that stuff. Secondly, I highly recommend that you use a backpack. If you've seen my videos before, you've seen the backpack that I use. I often, depending on the size of backpack, I can probably pack about 2 weeks worth of clothes in there. If you're not that apt in packing, you could probably pack at least a week worth of clothes. So here's why I highly recommend you use a backpack. And this is where it's going to save you some money. For most airports or most airlines are going to charge you, especially if you're booking economy, they're going to charge you for a rollaway. But if you have a backpack, especially if it's not those big oversized backpacks, they won't charge you because they're going to consider that as a personal item, and you won't have to pay the extra $42 up to $75 for having a rollaway. In addition to that, when you have a backpack, you can move around freely. If you're planning on going to Madrid, Paris, Rome, if you're planning on going to those places, it is much easier to move around with a backpack than it is to move around in a rollaway. In addition, I highly recommend that you use your feet, a bike, or public transportation when you're abroad versus taxis, because taxis and Ubers can become very expensive. If you're traveling in a bigger group, sometimes using a taxi and Uber is going to be cheaper. I'm going to give you an example. I'm traveling with a group of 4. We flew into Paris. We took the train from the airport down to Paris city center, and it cost us for all of us like $40 something or euros. Had we taken a cab, it would have been maybe, I think it was $8 more to take the cab. So hindsight being 2020, taking the cab would have been a better option because we would have gotten there direct instead of having to change trains from the airport to the city center where our Airbnb was. That's tip number 1 as it relates to packing and using a backpack. Tip number 2 is that plan out your trip in advance. Oftentimes you can get discounts. You can start negotiating with your Airbnbs. You have more options when you plan in advance. In addition to that, if you're going to bigger cities like Barcelona and you want to see some of the attractions there like La Sagrada Familia, or if you want to go to Rome, those you have to plan in advance, because if you want to get inside those places, you have to buy your tickets in advance, because if you wait till the last minute, you're most likely not going to get in, even if you're not going in peak season. For example, we're not in peak season and we were having a hard time getting our tickets to get into some of these attractions because we didn't book 2 or 3 weeks in advance. We waited for the last week. So always plan ahead in terms of your attractions, your whatever you're going to do where you're at, and booking your flights and your short-term rental. So plan ahead. Next, when you are in your destination, I've already gave you the tip is not to use or avoid using taxis or Ubers. Some places don't have Ubers, although they're tied into the taxi system. For example, in Barcelona, Uber it's not really legal there, but you can always go into the Uber app and it'll connect you to the local taxi. But my best form of transportation are my feet and a bike or a scooter. And you can find those all over the city. At just about any major city you go to in Europe, you're going to be able to rent a bike and or a scooter. Or I like to simply just walk. I usually walk. Anything that's within 2 miles, I'm going to walk to it. It allows you to do 2 things. It allows you to learn more of the city and see more. If you're constantly in a car, you're going to be missing a lot of rare gems that you don't miss when you're walking or when you're biking through the city. Hope this information was useful. If it was, please do me a favor, hit the like button, share this, follow me on Instagram. If you want to donate to the channel, buy me a coffee. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.